new chips for the Mac. So this time is finally for the MacBook Pro lineup, by which I mean for the 14-inch and the 16-inch. I know they previously released a 13-inch, but that one is, although it's pretty powerful, it's not meant for any kind of pro work. And I'm so excited that they finally have released this new one so that I can replace my MacBook Pro, which is the first one with the touch bar that was probably like 6 years ago, something like that. And a lot of people have different thoughts regarding like the notch from the top, as you can see from here, and the different kind of configurations when it comes to which Mac to pick. And today I'm just kind of giving my initial thoughts. I've already ordered mine, which is the 16-inch, and it's the 24-core GPU one. And I'm gonna let you guys know the reason why I picked that one, and also kind of my initial thoughts on the two different sizes and the multiple different kind of configurations of the MacBook Pro. Now, this is not going to be a tech comparison because I know a lot of fellow YouTubers are doing an amazing job in terms of comparing the technical things on these models. But today, just kind of my thoughts on how this impact my workflow, as well as, you know, potentially other photographers' workflow. Now, first of all, the first thing that you will see is the notch on the top. And a lot of people have concerns over it or have complaints over it. But for me, it's not so much of a big deal because realistically, photographers will take these Macs on the road. And even though it's a MacBook Pro, but the people, especially photographers who buy these MacBook Pros, will most likely use an external display when they use these MacBook Pros at home. And when they take these MacBook Pros out, maybe to studios or on location, more often than not, it's just a quick preview of their images that they captured on their cameras. So the notch itself doesn't really bother me. As far as the Liquid Retina display, allegedly it's the same display as the one on their Pro XDR, sorry. But to me, that is kind of not that useful for its price, because I'm sure that Apple has packaged the price of the screen quote-unquote upgrade into their final pricing. But to me, like I said, when at home, photographers will usually use an external display, and when outside, they just use this for the previews of the photos regarding whether the photos are sharp, whether the initial colors are correct. So I think the original screens will just do fine, but nevertheless, they don't have another screen option. So this is the only screen that we are stuck with. Probably like with a silver lining because it's a great screen, but you know, the bump in price, I personally cannot justify it from a photographer's perspective. Regarding the tech specs, like what these MacBook Pros packed inside, a lot of rumors on the internet has claimed that with the M1 Max chip, you are able to get a turbo boost essentially on your CPU, and some YouTubers have speculated this is mainly because the large chassis on the 16-inch and the fact that there is a possibility of a bigger or more powerful fan inside the chassis itself. So that resulted in a turbo boost capability in the 16-inch. But to me, I think a lot of people will just be fine with the M1 Pro. The reason why I ordered the M1 Max is just because the price difference, especially when I picked the 32 gig RAM, the price difference to upgrade from a M1 Pro to an M1 Max is so, I wouldn't call it minimal, but it kind of justifies itself, especially if I want to do potentially some video work in the future. I want to be able to get the two encoders and the two decoders inside the Mac, so that it just makes the workflow a lot faster. But other than that, I don't see any major differences between the two. But the turbo boost on the CPU, if that's the thing that matters to you, then by all means that will be a good upgrade option. But allegedly the M1 Pro will just be powerful enough to power everything that you need as a photographer, as you know, for your workflow. So that's kind of my initial thoughts, and this is coming from the perspective of a still photographer. Although I do video work from time to time, not to a very large extent, and mainly the kind of video that I do is for videos for YouTube like this. So for me, I think the M1 Max or the higher end M1 Pro with the 32 gig RAM would just make do. But at the same time, like I said, the price difference between the 32 gig RAM M1 Pro and the M1 Max is just not that huge. So I think to a lot of people, it would just be justified to have the 32 gig M1 Max. And the one that I ordered is the M1 Max together with 32 gig RAM and the 24 core GPU, considering that, for the editing it doesn't take up that much GPU power. So that's kind of my initial thoughts on the two different chips and the multiple configurations. Like I said, this is not so much of a tech comparison between all the different models, because a lot of YouTubers are doing an amazing job on this, and I don't want to repeat them, but it's just coming from a photographer's perspective on a daily use consideration. And thank you for watching.